Imagine playfully discovering the hidden carbon footprint of your daily life. You have clarity without fear or the overwhelming sense that you're missing a vital piece of the picture. You don't worry that you're causing irreparable harm to the planet, and you don't feel guilty about your choices because you have agency over your footprint. That's what we're talking about today on Environmental with Dandelion. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to Environmental with Dandelion, a podcast where we lean into the sustainability stories you might have missed. I'm Ob, your host and the chief cultivator behind Dandelion Branding. Our mission is to make noise for purpose-driven brands and to push sustainability into mainstream conversations. Head on down to our comments and tell me the number one thing that makes sustainability accessible for you. Today, I'm chatting with the Banana Lady, Emma Fieldhouse, the founder of Future We Want, which is a company dedicated to changing sustainability education and climate education with games like How Bad Are Bananas, the climate footprint game where you get to guess which actions or products in your daily life have the bigger carbon footprint. I actually got to play this game at Reset Connect and I loved it. And I invited Emma on the show on the spot. So here we are.
Oh, yeah.
Emma, can you start us off by sharing the number one thing you think people should know about climate education right now?
Number one, we all need it, I'd say. But actually, close number two is that, particularly for anybody listening to this, because they're already in the climate learning arena, then they're probably thinking it's really important that we get these science messages through to people. And I do agree, because there's a lot of urgency with regards to climate at the moment. Actually, how we deliver those messages is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
And most people actually don't know a lot of the words that we're even using in this space. You know, they're so disconnected that actually just having a conversation about their own impacts is something really novel to most like regular people, I would say. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, obviously, we were at the show. How did people feel about being able to look at the game?
Yeah.
And like really see their impact there?
And I've got some of the cards here as well, actually. And this is our favourite comparison, which is a kilogram of cheddar cheese to a pair of average shoes. I will reveal the answer towards the end, but I'm just going to kind of tease people with that one whilst we're talking. I think the point is, like, we all wear clothes, we all eat food. And so the game is refreshing in the sense that you can connect as an individual, but I'm not blaming you, I'm not judging you, I'm not shaming you. It's just a different way of reframing the whole conversation. Instead of focusing on the science, on the scary thing that might be coming towards us, we're just bringing it right back to things that can connect with every single learner, which is all about themselves, because you know what it's like. We're only interested in what we're doing. We're not really interested in the things going on at the outside.
And we can only impact what we do and the decisions we make, right?
Yeah.
Even if you run a company like we do and like you do, I can still only choose for my company and I can still only be an outspoken advocate from my own platform.
Yeah.
So that is one thing I really appreciate about what you're building. And I love the banana game. So I kept calling it.
We will. I mean, the whole How Bad Bananas thing, I mean, I loved it as well, but it wasn't me that wrote the book that this game's based on. But there you go. There's a copy of our sort of set A game. And so the How Bad Bananas book was written first in 2010 by a fantastic author, Mike Berners-Lee. You might recognise his surname if you're in the kind of geek kind of internet world and all of that and tech world, because Tim Berners-Lee, his brother, was the person who developed the internet, created the internet. And so you can see there's quite a lot of, that's a very bright family for a start, right? But you can see that there's two brothers doing two really different things. Like this one's created global trade, and this one's like trying to fix all the problems of global trade. And so, how about a bananas? And actually, so where are you from originally?
Michigan.
Right. Okay. Now they released this book in America, and they actually removed "How Bad Are Bananas" from the title and just called it "The Carbon Footprint of Everything." And they thought because the Americans weren't going to find "How Bad Are Bananas" like interesting, fun, culturally relevant. Is that right? I think they've missed a trick. I think they missed a trick. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think like how bad are bananas is like makes it interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't want to offend Americans because by and large we're very sensitive to cultural offense.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Maybe they were thinking something else about bananas as well. Who knows? So, but bananas.
it could also be trade, like banana trade in the States is massive.
Yeah.
You don't want to offend the banana trade people. I know some of them people. They're not very
No, you don't want
easy
to.
to go with.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So, but I think they missed a trick because, like you say, that how bad are bananas? Just even posing the question, I think is probably the reason why a lot of us actually picked that book up back in the day, like 2010. We're talking 15 years ago, the first version, and actually, it's such a great concept because actually we don't think about how bad any of the things are that we consume, not on a day-to-day basis. Or perhaps those of us who are in the business, we do think about it. You'd be brushing your teeth in the morning, you'd be thinking, oh, where's my toothbrush come from? What's it made from? Could I get something better? All this kind of stuff is going on in your head.
Yeah.
Most normal people don't think like that. And so I think the kind of most important thing for anybody educating in this area is not to make any assumptions that everybody thinks the way you do, but actually we need to bring everything back down to that very simple conversation of, ooh, these are the things you do that have an impact. So it's sort of, we use the word obliquity as a kind of concept, was that you actually get to the final end point, but you don't go directly there. You kind of go all the way around the outside. And we see that that's what the game does, is it gets people to the heart of a climate conversation, but it's not me coming up to you and going, hey, do you want to talk about the climate? It's me going, do you want to play a game? And so we just took all the data in Mike's book and we just started creating cards from each of those different items so that you could just compare things. And you just stick it out there and say, so over to you, player. Which is higher, cheese or shoes? So should we play? Did you do this comparison when you were at the show?
I did. I know the answer.
Oh, maybe we shouldn't do this one then. Have you done the tomatoes and the bananas? No. Okay. Well, I will tell people the answer to this one at the end of the show. And if I haven't, they're going to have to get in touch with us. Play the game. No. Okay.
Or just get the game. Get the game.
Yeah, or get the game. Absolutely. When we say get the game, it's not just cards and stuff. It's like we've put all of our 10 years of experience of conversations into a training package and you get the game with it and a book. So, you know what I mean? It's not like the same price as Trivial Pursuit. Anyway, so we will compare a kilogram of bananas and the same quantity, but of vine cherry tomatoes. They're organic, they're grown in the UK, and they're ready in March. Now, it's a carbon footprint game, so I need you to tell me what a carbon footprint is before we start.
Okay, so it's how much carbon goes into creating that food.
Yeah. And so, do you know, when I asked that...
Energy.
Yeah.
I think is a really big one here. Fertilizers, like
water.
What else? Water. Yeah, water.
Transport.
That, okay, so can I ask questions about
of course you can.
bananas?
We're having a conversation. This is the point with the game, isn't it?
Where are they grown?
Which ones?
The bananas.
The bananas. Well, where in the world would bananas grow?
Usually South America.
The best answer to that question I ever had was a 5-year-old boy in a museum who was just so excited. And I said, where do we grow bananas? And he was like jumping up and down. He couldn't wait to answer. And he went, the equator! And which is true. Of course it is. It's in hot places. So, yeah, there's lots in South America. There's other parts of the world that grow them as well. On the equator. Or nearby.
On the equator.
Somewhere where it's warm all the time.
Yeah.
And what about these tomatoes?
Well, they're grown in the UK and they're grown in March, which means it's shitty weather. And they have to be grown inside because it rains every day and that will severely hurt your tomatoes.
Mm-hmm. You understand the weather in the UK, don't you? Because it's the same in Holland, isn't it?
That's correct.
Have you ever grown tomatoes as well?
I have.
Yeah. So, but when you first saw that comparison of bananas and tomatoes, which one were you thinking it was going to be?
Well, in the beginning, I was like, oh, bananas. But when I think about 24-hour energy use in the greenhouse, then I'm thinking it might be tomatoes.
Yeah, and you know, because the book is called How Bad Are Bananas, then a lot of people just assume that the bananas are bad. Now,
Yeah.
the things that you've told me in that conversation are not the things that people necessarily will think of when we're playing this game, because not everybody understands what the weather's like in the UK at that time of the year, and the fact that we would have to heat and light those tomatoes.
I also know how bananas are shipped.
Yeah, and they are.
So
Yeah.
they shipped like in these massive containers really efficiently, like, and it's ocean freight, and then the container it's never empty. So it's emptied and then refilled.
And 100 million bananas per
Yeah,
week, which is a lot of bananas.
exactly.
Yeah.
So the ocean freight people have like really dialed in.
Well, some people will also say, well, bananas fly here, don't they? Because they don't even know that bananas don't fly. I mean, the banana boat was a thing, kind of, you know, I think my parents and their parents would have known that bananas would travel on a boat. But these days, people are just not sure about how things are reaching them. But then the thing is, people can connect with these cards in different ways, because some people connect with the graphic, or they might even connect with the colour. Or there might be like colourblind people who don't see the colour, but they're interested in the words. And then there's some people who probably will remember the numbers on the back of the card. But I have to tell you, I don't think that's the most important thing. Although I am going to reveal the answer for these two. So you're saying tomatoes are higher than bananas?
I'm saying tomatoes, yeah.
Okay, right. Well, we'll do it the other way around. So the bananas, 0.67 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent, because it's not just carbon dioxide, it's all of the greenhouse gases in one calculation.
Okay.
So if there was some methane, or if there's some nitrous oxides that have been released because of nitrogen fertilizers, then that would be included in there. They're also refrigerated, so you'd have F gases that would be included as well. So
Yep.
any kind of cooling would also add in there. And then the tomatoes are a scary 28.2, absolutely whopping. And it's exactly for the reason that you said. And it's because this is pretty much the most, to use an Americanism, dumbass way of producing a tomato. Okay. So what we say to people is, right, if you were going to grow your own tomatoes, they would be lower than that banana number, probably, if you grow them in season, the right time of year. So like now, when it's sunny and warm enough outside that you could just put them outside, or in your own greenhouse. But actually, these have been heated and lit for probably 3 months, because it's about a 12-week cycle for growing tomatoes. So a lot of people are like, oh, it's all the water that gets added in. Now, the water does have its own carbon footprint, but actually, in this case, it's literally growing your tomatoes in a glass box in a cold country in the middle of winter. It's stupid. So if you want fresh tomatoes in the UK in the middle of winter, then actually get them from Spain, Italy, or Morocco, because even though they've travelled that distance, they've actually got a lower carbon footprint. Or just eat Tetra Packed or tinned in the winter, because they've always been packaged at the point that they were fresh and in abundance. So it's just about asking questions. I know a lot of people who say to me after they've done that comparison that they then will go and read the packet on the tomatoes. And so this time of year, and we're talking at the end of July in the UK, get British, because 12 weeks ago we probably would have had, sufficient warming. Or maybe from now until about October, November, get British. Rest of the time, don't do it. Get something that's come a little bit further, but it's actually got a lower footprint, even though it's travelled. And that's another thing we find with the game, because people just make an assumption that the distance something travels is the big part of the footprint. And in a lot of cases, it isn't.
So interesting. Thank you for doing, like, I love this game. I really appreciate how accessible you're making it and how you speak about it in such an accessible and like unjudgmental way. And so it's time for me to ask you my favorite question. But before I do that, I just want to remind our audience that sustainability is not always algorithm approved. And we refuse to fall prey to the green hush. So we need your help to make sure that these stories are heard. So please remember to spread the love by liking, subscribing, and sharing the EnvironMental with Dandelion podcast with all of your friends who mean a little ego. Now, my favorite question time: share the role of Future We Want in the transition to a more sustainable future?
Well, I guess my kind of big hope for us in the next sort of decade is that we can work with Mike, who wrote the book, and we can produce different versions of this game for different cultures and for different languages. And we would target those parts of the world where there's the biggest carbon footprints. So we already know there's a copy that's gone over to the Americas, and I've actually already sold our game into like a Canadian science museum. And I've got contacts in China who want to take it there as well. And I heard this really good analogy recently from one of Mike's staff, Charlie Westney, his head of sort of comms marketing. And she said that in climate learning, the stuff they do is like uphill ultramarathon stuff because they create carbon footprints for companies that are really bespoke. Whereas the stuff that we do is like the couch to 5K. So our game is the thing that can just get people on the journey to even asking the questions. And I think being an educator and knowing that we have to encourage like critical thinking in as many people as possible, asking questions and looking for answers and not just accepting what they hear and they see, because it's the learning around climate and carbon, but also it gets you thinking. I love it. And I think eventually it will be in lots of different places. But we are also producing a digital version. So maybe that will reach parts first. So watch this space for the digital when it gets there.
Yeah, I'll help you launch it. I love that. I would love to help you launch that. I think we have really aligned missions, right? Dandelion is our whole mission is to make sustainability part of mainstream conversations. And I feel like the carbon footprint game does it. I feel like that's a really nice, like, I want to take it to parties. I'm already that climate girl that people like. I'm already that, like,
Are you known as the dandelion woman in the way I'm known as the bananas lady?
I don't know if necessarily somebody would call me the dandelion woman, but I've had a lot of names like the hippie that you hang out with. But yeah, I've always been that. So me showing up with a banana game, being like party games, I don't think anybody would be surprised.
Yeah. We have been doing this for like 10 years. And we have a whole training package that goes behind it. So it's not just like handing you the cards and telling you to get on with it. Because part of the thing for me is that unless you have the knowledge, so you have the knowledge, right? So when you answered that comparison, you could work out that tomatoes at that time of the year, so you got the clues on the card. But actually, if you're playing those cards and you didn't have that knowledge, if you don't have a facilitator with you to guide you through that kind of conversation, you might come out the other side and not actually know much more. So you see what I mean?
Fair.
So at the moment, the game is still very much about having a facilitator to kind of guide you and help you through the process. It's also what's made it quite tricky to turn it into a digital version, because how do you take a facilitated conversation and turn that into something that somebody does on their own? And I think it shows you as well that kind of how sustainability is like just not straightforward. So being able to communicate it involves something more facilitated or slightly more in depth.
It does. To get like real information, it takes a really critical eye as well. And it takes like focus, we've found. And because people get so focused on their thing that they do, we see that there's a lot of silos in the sustainability world, mostly because people are professionals and experts in the thing they do. And then they also like sustainability. And then they merge those two things together, but they're still solving for X in their own industry. There's not a lot of cross-industry pollination. I definitely see it more than I did 5 years ago when we started kind of talking about this. That was part of why we wanted to create this podcast, is because we want to talk to everybody across lots of industries, because we want to draw parallels. And I feel like something your game does, shoes and cheese, what? How are they?
Well, you might have cheesy shoes depending on how long you've been wearing them for. So when you were asked this one as well, did you get it right, or how did it go? The conversation you did. See, because you're informed, so you know what you're talking about. But when we started playing this game 10 years ago, like 99% of people choose shoes, and it's that thing I said to you earlier about people just make an assumption that it's to do with how far something's traveled. And so A pair of average shoes in the UK, a pair of trainers or sneakers like this probably have come from Southeast Asia, China, probably,
Mhm.
and they've travelled here
Classic.
on a boat, generally. But
Yeah.
it's a two-tier system, so if it's high-end designer or fast fashion, it might have flown. Yeah. So that they think, well, there's a big footprint there because that's literally a big carbon footprint as well as a big footprint, depending on how big your shoes are. So most people are choosing that because I think what happens is, right, you see these cards and basically people go back to primary school when they see these pictures, and so you see the shoes and you would have drawn a picture of a ship traveling across the ocean chugging some pollution out, and that's the kind of image in your head when the teacher asked you to say, well, how are the shoes getting here, and oh, draw a picture of it, right, okay. But you know what you're not seeing? You're not seeing a trumping, burping cow in the field, are you? And I use the word trump advisedly. It's kind of political, I'm sure. And, well, it's the best word to use
I
at
do
the
know.
moment, isn't it?
I do know. Yeah.
Yes. So, and basically, consequently, because the cow is emitting methane, and King Charles, when he was Prince Charles, some of his cows were part of a research project where they were wearing what I could only describe as GIMP masks, right? These cows, and it was gathering all the gases on there from their nose and putting it into a can on their back, and then they were measuring it and measuring how much methane there was. Sorry, cows and GIMP masks. I mean, I don't know how I managed to come up with this stuff, but anyways, so yes, methane having like 4 times the warming impact of carbon dioxide or whatever it is, that comes out at 11.8 kilograms CO2, and the shoes 11.5. So the cheese is only just higher. But when we play this comparison, we then say to people, but how long will that last in a family fridge? And how long are you going to use those for? Because that's the thing that kind of is really shocking in this comparison. You can have at minimum 6 months life out of that, minimum. And I mean, my last pair of trainers were probably about 10 years old. I do wear nice clothes sometimes as well, though. So, but we're trying to make the invisible visible.
Yeah.
And I think it's really needed because, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the other thing. If climate gases were like bright pink neon, we'd have fixed this already.
What would you say is the biggest misconception when it comes to either climate education or generally what you're actually teaching people?
There's a few misconceptions, I'd say. Some people think that what we're doing is just for primary level because of how the game looks, but actually adults are just as curious, and playing games is a really powerful way of getting messages across. But I'd say also there's a bit of a misconception that just because we use games and fun for learning, that we're not deadly serious about helping support what's going on in the climate arena. And you probably know already that argument about we have to change the system, and that they're trying to divert your attention by getting you to focus on your own individual impacts. And this systems thinking versus individual impacts is a ridiculous dichotomy within sustainability because we have to have all of it.
We have to have all of it.
And if you're a person operating within sustainability or whatever sector, if you're not bought into this and your eyes are not open to even looking at it, you're not going to challenge the system in any capacity. You're just going to continue in it. So what we're trying to do is get people on that journey. Boom.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I have a lot more questions for you, but we're going to have to answer those in our next one when we're launching together the online version of your game.
Wonderful.
So where can people find you? How can they get a hold of you if they want to touch base, or how do they buy the game?
Okay, well, Dr. Emma Fieldhouse on LinkedIn, you'll find me there, and please connect as well as follow. And we share lots of content regularly, and you could also follow Future We Want on there. We are also on Instagram, and you can also go to our website, which is bananasgame.com, and we have a shop. So yeah, if you've been inspired, you can go and buy this game immediately. We also run carbon literacy courses. So if this is an area and you want to do more work in it, and you want to have a bit more confidence to actually do the education using our game, then come and do our carbon literacy course.
Wonderful. We will put how you can get a hold of Dr. Emma Fieldhouse down in the show notes. Thanks for sticking around. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends who lean a little eco. And I'll see you next time.